Hello and welcome to this module where we are going to be discussing resources. So far we have talked about tasks, which are the various activities that need to be carried out from the beginning up to the end of the project. But in order to carry out these activities, there are various things that we need in order to accomplish the purpose of the tasks. These are what we are referring to as resources. So every project needs resources in order to complete the various tasks. In MS Project, we can define three different types of resources. The first type of resources are what we refer to as work resources. These include people and equipment needed to complete the tasks. So work resources are actually resources that perform work. So a person can perform some work. Equipment can also perform some work. Then we have a second category referred to as cost resources. These represent categories of financial costs that are derived from specific tasks that you need to account for in a plan. For example, travel and entertainment costs. So these are not people or machines that are performing work, but these are costs that we incur in the process of executing a task, and we need to give account of these costs. So when we travel and when we entertain ourselves, we need to record the costs for these activities. The third category is what we refer to as material resources. These are consumables that get used up as the project proceeds. So these are things like concrete, bricks, nails that get consumed in the process of executing the work. Unlike equipment that you use and you can reuse again in the next project, material resources cannot be reused because they are actually consumed during the course of the project. Now we are going to look at work resources, which include people and equipment. In MS Project, we focus on two aspects of work resources, which are their availability and their cost. When we talk of availability, we are referring to when the specific resources can work on a task and how much work they can perform. So if it is an individual, we want to know if he is available for the whole 8-hour day or if he's only available for half the time. That is what we refer to as availability. So when we are recording the resources in MS Project, availability will either be 100%, 50%, 20%, depending on how often that particular resource is going to be available. The cost refers to the financial cost that is incurred by resources that are performing work on the project. In other words, we are charging the project with this particular resource. So if we charge out an engineer, for example, at $300 per hour, that is going to be the cost to the task or the cost to the project. We could also hire a piece of equipment and we are paying $200 per hour or per day. That becomes the cost of that resource to the task. In MS Project, work resource names can refer to specific people or to job titles. So in other words, if you're asked to put the name of the resource, if there is a specific person working on that task, you can say the resource is John. But if there is a group of people that can be interchanged to perform the same task, you can simply put a job title to say artisans or to say electrician. Then the names of the individual people will not matter. So a resource may refer to someone who is already on the staff or to a position that will be filled later. Remember, we are working on a plan. Therefore, we do not need to have all the resources in advance. We can put on our plan a resource that is going to be hired 12 months down the line. So all we do is we simply put the job title or the description of what type of person is going to fill that position. When we look at work resources, we see we have got people and equipment. These two are set up in exactly the same way in MS Project, but there are certain differences between people and equipment. Firstly, most people resources have a typical 8-hour working day, and they don't usually work more than 12 hours, whereas equipment resources have got a varied work capacity, which can range from short durations, and after that you maintain them, they continue again, you take another break, you clean them, etc. But there are also other equipment that can run round the clock, 24 hours uninterrupted. Further, people resources might be flexible in the tasks they perform. In other words, one individual could double up in one task, they move from there, they go and do a different thing. But most equipment is specialized in what it does. So if you have got a generator, it's simply there to generate electricity. But a person can be told, go and pick up some bricks. When they come from there, they can be told, dig a trench. From there, they'll be told, go and pack the tools in the shed. So people can multitask, so to speak. On a project, we don't necessarily need to track every piece of equipment that is going to be used. We only track equipment if there are going to be different teams that might need to use the same equipment. In other words, there is potential for double booking or for overbooking a piece of equipment. And we also track the equipment if we want to track the costs that are associated with that equipment. So if there are certain things that you are using on the project, but you are not associating a particular cost to that equipment, there is no point in listing that equipment on your plan in MS Project. I'm now going to show you how we enter the work resources on MS Project. We continue from where we left off on our file. I take it that your project file is up to date. The first thing that we need to do is to create the list of resources that we have. And then once we have the list of resources, we can then assign those resources to various tasks. So far, we've been working on the Gantt chart in a task-centric view, meaning that the view we are working on is centered around the tasks. That's what task-centric means. So what we need now is to go to a view that focuses on resources. So we go to our ribbon, and on the View tab, we are going to look for the Resource Views group. So the Resource Views group, and then we look for Resource Sheet. So you click on Resource Sheet. We now have a blank sheet where we can type in all the resources that we need. We are not going to be entering all the details all at once, but we are going to be coming back to this sheet as I describe the different aspects of the resource sheet. To begin with, all we are going to be entering are the resource names and what type of resource it is. So far, we've discussed work resources, so we are going to be entering a number of work resources. In other words, people and equipment. To reduce the complication, we'll enter only a few people and maybe 2 or 3 pieces of equipment. So we remember that we are constructing a house. So this is a building project. As we think through the type of resources that we need, let's consider the various stages in the construction process. So we said we start by designing the house. So let's say the person that designs the house is an architect. So because we are still in the planning stages, we do not have the name of the person yet. So as a resource, we can simply put architect. And then the type of resource you can see on the drop down is either work, material, or cost resource. So this is a work resource. So for now, we simply put the name and the type. The second stage in our construction is for people that are going to be constructing the foundation. So on the foundation, you're going to need somebody that's going to dig the foundation. Then you're going to need bricklayers. So let's say I'll call them general worker. The guys that are going to be digging the foundation. At first, I wanted to call them digger, but I thought let's call them general worker so that they may be able to perform other works. And then we need the bricklayer, who is also a work resource. Right. From digging the foundation, we go to the next stage, which is the building of the wall. So on the building of the wall, we already have the bricklayer. There is a spelling mistake there. Not bricklayer. Bricklayer. Right, so we already have the bricklayers. So that stage of the wall, there is going to be the bricklayers, and then we're also going to have the electricians doing the electrical fittings. Then we'll have the plumbers as well. So let's put electrician. And then we put a plumber. And then we put a painter. Then for our roof and also for fittings in the home, we are going to need a carpenter who can do the roof structure. And we also need a carpenter to do our built-in cupboards and all the other lumber fittings inside the house. Okay, so if I've forgotten any person, we will always come back and add them here. So now let's think of equipment that will be required. I can think of a concrete mixer. that's going to be mixing the concrete as we do the foundation. And what else do we need? We're also going to need tile cutter for cutting tiles. We're going to need some ladders. Right, so in order to keep our project simple, we will leave it with these resources. So we have got an architect, general worker, bricklayer, electrician, plumber, carpenter, concrete mixer, tile cutter, ladder. I remember wherever I saw construction workers, they always had a chef. First thing in the morning, he comes, he lights up the fire and he starts cooking. Unfortunately, we cannot put that person as a resource. All we simply do is we abuse one of our people here, especially the general workers, and we excuse them to go and make the meals for us, but they are a very critical part of the process. Right, so we've finished putting up our work resources. So the order in which these resources go in doesn't really matter, but just in case you'd want to insert a resource at a particular place, all you do is you simply click where you want to insert that resource, and then we go on the resources tab. You go on resources and then you look for the insert group, and then click on add resources. This filter menu comes up and you select the type of resource that you want to add. So I click on work resource, and then it inserts a new resource for me. So automatically it puts new resource as the default name, but you can then type in the actual name of the resource. Right. So I do not really want this new resource, so I can use it to also show you how to get rid of a resource that you do not want. You simply go to that resource line, right click on it, and then click on delete resource, and then that resource is gone. So you can either insert or you can delete a resource. Okay, so I'm going to leave you to create your work resources, and then I'll come back in the next video, and then we are going to start talking about maximum capacity for the work resources. Make sure you save your project file before you close and continue to the next module.